Yeah. Like, I feel like I actually wanted to read something from your book. Todd, will you hand it to me? Because, and again, I'm going general here, but I just really appreciated that. I just love hearing you talk about this, Devorah, because I can just tell how much you've thought about it and study it. Like, you have every angle. But this is on page 6 of her book. Growing up in public makes the case that parents should shift their focus from consequences to building character, helping their kids figure out who they really are and teaching them to respect their own privacy and reputation by modeling that respect for them. I know you're just talking about, like, you're not, a Zen parent, which is funny because nobody really is. Yeah. If that's the secret to this podcast, is we're all just you're doing our best. Yeah. Oh, right. Exactly. Like, all of us are reactive. All of us have challenges. But that quote, and why I circled it, is that's what we're trying to do too, is let's take responsibility. Let's not be hypocritical. Let's model things. Let's understand. There was another quote a few pages before that were about, let's be more empathetic with our kids' experiences. Like, can you imagine if we had grown up this way? Like, I remember I used to go to this park in DeKalb where I grew up, and it was where we did everything. That's where we looked at our first magazine that was a Playboy. That's where we smoked our first cigarette. That's where we did all these things. It was like this place we could go where, experimentation, whatever way. And I remember one time my parents were taking a walk. And now when I think about that story, I'm like, of course they probably were walking through to, like, bust, not to get me in trouble, but they knew I was there. And I remember them walking through and me being like, oh my God, I can't believe my parents were here. And it was so, like, overwhelming and scary. But that was one moment. Mm-hmm. The rest of the time I had all this freedom. But I think that freedom that I'm talking about scares parents. Don't you think parents are more frightened today about what their kids are doing?
I think they are. I mean, there's so much worry about mental health and more information. And the flip side is there's much more support available. So many of us, when I was in high school in the early 90s, so many of my friends were smoking cigarettes, but also self-medicating with other drugs. And, some of them would have benefited probably from therapy or other supports that weren't as widely accessible. So I think we can think about, in some ways, the world is better. I think in some ways the world is more challenging and stressful too.
Yeah. I think the things confronting teens that teens are dealing with today, I just wrote something the other day where, parents will always say to me, are children having more mental health challenges, or are they more willing to talk about it now? And the answer is yes and yes. I think they are more willing to talk about it. So it's more in the ethers. And I also think there's more that they're dealing with that we don't even really understand. And that's where the communication comes in, is the whole idea of when I was your age just does not
fly.
It doesn't. But I do think parents should also not discount their own experience completely, in that just because you didn't grow up with TikTok or Discord doesn't mean you don't get what it's like to be left out or have conflict. Like, you do have social skills that you can impart to your kid. You do have an understanding of public versus private that you can impart to your kid. So I think, you don't want to lean in too much to when I was your age with them, but in terms of your own confidence, in terms of supporting them and mentoring them on growing up in the digital age, I think you do have relevant experiences. Even if you are on social media, maybe using a different app than they do, like maybe you're on Facebook and they're on Instagram or Snapchat, you can still know how it feels like when nobody likes your posts.
Yeah.
For sure.
One of the things you said in your book was you found that the kids that were most unbothered by social media saw it as a performance, that they understood that social media was not necessarily the truth about people's lives, but a performance. Will you talk more about that?
Absolutely. It's really important that kids get that everybody's kind of posting their dream moments, or they're sort of living their best life. And that 99% of life is kind of the boring and the mundane. And, I'm doing my chores, I'm getting dinner ready, I'm doing my homework. And most people don't post at those moments. They post at the beach, or they post on vacation, or they post at a party, but in that one moment where the light is really good and their hair looks really cute. And it's important to recognize that if you look at that, it's easy to feel like my life isn't in these highlight, extreme moments. It's, what am I doing? I'm home on the weekend or whatever. And so it's really painful to compare yourself to what people post on social media. And it can make you feel like, I even find looking at what other parents post can make me feel competitive with other parents. I'm like, wow, well, I'm not like the scout leader, or I'm not, whatever, taking my kid to have these amazing experiences in the summertime. Like, am I not doing enough for him? Is there not, am I not engaged enough? I've never been on the PTA.
No, me neither.
My kid actually really doesn't want me to. So that one, I'm doing him a favor. He really wants me like out of school. So that's actually by agreement. But I think it's really important to not compare ourselves and recognize, again, that whatever people are posting for, they may be posting for their own reasons. Maybe they're feeling really isolated. Maybe they need some response and support. And people are posting to get that. And I think when kids see those posts, it's really easy to forget that it's a performance. So if you get that, and you can have a sense of humor about it, like, oh, I got some new followers, eye roll, and not be so hung up on it.
Yeah.
And not tie it to your worth, and really not be confused about the difference between actual friendships and followers. I think that's really important to understand. Like, a friend shows up for you, a follower just hit a button.
Yeah.
You know, what's really helped with the performance aspect is, and my girls pointed this out to me, now that you can take live pictures, where a picture is like moving. And so you can get the perfect picture. If someone sends you a picture and you keep watching the live, you sometimes, like, people be smiling, and then they'll drop the smile and they'll go back to what they're doing. Like, the girls now, do you know what I mean, Todd, about a live picture?
Yeah. It's like a 2-second picture.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you see the whole experience of taking that picture.
Yeah. You see the performance, and then before or after the performance.
Exactly. And so I found that to be for kids that's another thing you have to think about. But I found that to be kind of an interesting.
Well, it's revealing.
It's revealing.
Yes.
That's a good.
So chapter 2 is called Growing Up in the Public Eye. And I wrote this down. It's somewhere in chapter 2. A third of girls and women won't post unaltered images of themselves. Let me read that again. A third of girls and women will not post unaltered images of themselves. And as a 51-year-old man, I just think I have a hard time empathizing, like, and I get it, but I don't get it. So
when you say a hard time empathizing, what do you mean?
Just show pictures of yourself and don't filter.
Oh man.
I know.
Such a man thing to say.
I know.
There's tremendous pressure on women and girls to look cute all the time.
I totally get
and
it.
Look cute within a very set of narrow confines.
Totally.
I blame, whether it's right or wrong, like Kim Kardashian or whatever other pop culture figure carries this idea of perfection.
Well, and I'll even back up. Like, Gen X, we grew up in the age of 17 magazine. And I have told my girls this story a million times. It's why I remember like looking at the back of 17, and there was a Neutrogena commercial or like advertisement, and the girl's skin was perfect. And I was like, how does she get it that way? A Stridex pad, Neutrogena. I would buy the products to have that. And I was much older when I realized this is airbrush. This isn't real. This isn't. And so like from the time our girls were little, when magazines were, in the aisle at the grocery store, I'd be like, that's not really what this person looks like. This is airbrushed. And so my point, Todd, is that it's part Kardashian and reality TV, but it's been around forever.
I get it.
There's so much pressure. And I know what you mean. You have a lot
if everybody's doing that, like, I just wish there'd be enough people that weren't doing that so that we can normalize not doing that. And it doesn't work. But a real quick question, because one thing that I was naive about was, obviously body image for women and girls is such a interesting topic, but I think I learned that boys also struggle with that too. And in your interviews or research, are boys doing the same thing as girls regarding filters and all that
boys
stuff?
Are not, and boys will get teased by their friends if they appear to care too much. I mean, girls also sometimes, if they are very obviously filtered, their friends will. Yeah. But it's more normative behavior for girls in some social circles. I mean, every kid is different. It really depends. Like, if your kid is hanging out with a bunch of very keep it real girls, they very well may not be filtering. Yeah. And they would probably, if they filtered, it would be like a funny, weird thing. Boys, if they obviously filtered, will definitely get teased for doing that.
Got it.
So like one boy I talked to said like his friend had like photoshopped in some like abs, and that, but he did it in a way that he was making fun of the idea. Like he was like, oh, look at, and he was like open that it was filtered, and that was sort of okay. But if it seemed like he was doing that in a serious way to try to make it look like his body was very different than it actually looks, and that would, by the way, be actually safe and okay for a teenage boy's body to look, because that's not like the way superheroes look on TV is not a safe way for your 15-year-old to try to look by going to the gym. And that's a really important thing that kids need to know. And I think more girls do get those anti-messages. Like I think more girls, maybe their mothers or somebody says to them, this is airbrushed. I don't think boys hear enough that, by the way, even if you're an athlete as a teenage boy, this is not a safe set of body ideals for you. This is not what a 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old boy's body should look like. Right. Like you don't want to be, you know, taking steroids or doing these other things to try to make your body conform to these standards, just like we don't want our daughters to do other extreme and unhealthy things. Right. So I think there's not enough of that message. And I think all of our kids are growing up seeing more images of themselves. And so there's just more to like fixate on. Whereas typically kids, when we were young, we didn't see images of ourselves maybe at like winter holidays or birthdays or, you know, yearly wallet size, but we didn't see pictures of our bodies. Like I actually don't have pictures of me in a bathing suit from when I was a tween or a teen. Because if I was in a bathing suit, we were at the beach, my parents didn't bring a camera to the beach or the pool because you get it wet, right? That wasn't something, you didn't carry your camera everywhere. And so there wasn't like a lot of, you know, to look at. And so when I talked to Stephanie Zerwas, who's an expert on eating disorders and prevention, she said, maybe lay off the photos of your tweens and teens, especially like a lot of body pictures around that age, because maybe they actually don't need as much information about the micro ways their bodies are changing, because kids in puberty need to gain a lot of weight and that's healthy and important for them. But it can be a lot. And she said she's seen kids with EDs really focus on like, oh, I really like this one picture, how I look here, but I don't like this other picture. And that's maybe just too much data. Now, for many kids, having those images can be fine. Like not every kid is going to be, you know, have disordered eating from you taking pictures of them in their shorts or a bathing suit. So I don't want to overstate the risk there, but I just think in general, we're taking and sharing a lot of pictures of our kids. And we should think about, especially in those kind of sensitive years of like the tween and teen body is changing a lot. And that's also a time when kids probably should have more control over what's shared about them. So we want to get permission, but we might want to go with a less is more approach to photography.
Well, and I just want to like bless Cathy, because Cathy's really good at this. I don't do social media that much. But Cathy will like, if like we went to a Taylor Swift concert or whatever, like you'll still ask all our daughters permission on everything, even if it seems really super innocent. For
everything to post.
And I don't know how many parents are posting pictures of their kids without their kids' permission, but you do I'm like, why are you even, like, it's such an innocent picture, but you ask anyways.